After humanity's fall, the flood, and the Tower of Babel, the world was scattered, confused, and far from God. But then, in the middle of all those nations, God called one man, an ordinary man, no army, no kingdom, no children, no guarantees. And yet, God chose to begin something new through him. His name was Abram, and the question is, why did God choose Abram? The answer begins in Genesis chapter 12. God spoke to Abram in a direct and powerful way. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. This calling required something deep. God was not simply asking Abram to change locations. He was asking for faith. Abram would have to leave behind his land, his security, his familiar world, his history, and everything he had known, in order to follow a promise he could not yet see. And then God made an astonishing promise. Sight, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. This was no small promise. God was saying that through one seemingly unlikely man, he would begin a story that would reach generations. Abram did not have all the answers, but he did something that would change everything. He obeyed. Without knowing every detail, without understanding the whole journey, without seeing the end, Abram simply went. And maybe that is one of the first great lessons of his story. God is not looking for people who understand everything. He is looking for people who are willing to obey. Abram departed with his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, his servants, and everything he owned. When he arrived in the land of Canaan, God appeared to him again and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." And then Abram did something important. He built an altar to the Lord. That detail may seem simple, but it is deeply meaningful. Whenever God revealed himself, Abram responded with worship. He did not just walk with God, he honored God. And that reveals a lot about why he was chosen, not because he was perfect, but because his heart responded to the voice of God. But the journey of faith never happens without tests. Soon after that, there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt. There, afraid that he would be killed because of Sarai's beauty, he made a decision driven by fear. He asked Sarai to say that she was his sister. It was a moment of weakness. A moment when Abram, instead of fully trusting God, tried to protect himself through his own wisdom. And that shows us something very important. Even the people God uses deeply still have flaws. Abram was not a perfect hero. He was human. And still, God remained with him. That is one of the powerful truths of Scripture. God's faithfulness does not depend on human perfection. After that, Abram left Egypt and returned to the place where he had first built an altar to the Lord. He returned to God, and that matters too. Because anyone who walks with God may stumble, but must always learn how to come back. As Chimi pas Abram and Lot, very prosperous. Their flocks, servants, and possessions increased so much that the land could no longer support them together. So conflict arose between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. And here we see another remarkable trait in Abram. Even though he was older, even though he had received the promise, even though he held the greater position, he chose peace. Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, for we are relatives." And then he gave Lot the first choice of the land. That is impressive, because people who trust the promise of God do not have to cling to control. Lot looked toward the well-watered plains of the Jordan and chose what seemed best in his own eyes. It looked like a great decision. It was beautiful, it was fertile, it was advantageous, but there was a problem. That region was near Sodom, and not everything that looks appealing to the eyes is safe for the soul. While Lot chose by what he could see, Abram continued trusting what God had said. After they separated, God spoke to Abram again. He said, Lift up your eyes and look. All the land that you see I will give to you and to your offspring forever. What a powerful contrast that Lot chose what looked better, but Abram received what God had prepared. And that still speaks to us today. Many times, what seems more promising in the moment is not actually what God has set apart for us. The blessing of God does not depend on human urgency, it depends on his promise. After that, Abram settled near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, and there he built another altar to the Lord. Once again, worship. Once again, communion. Once again, a heart turned toward God. But the story does not stop there. In chapter 14, something unexpected happens. A war between kings breaks out across the region. Cities are invaded, people are defeated, and Lot, now living near Sodom, is taken captive. When Abram heard about it, he did not remain passive. He gathered his trained men, pursued the enemy, and fought to rescue his nephew. This moment reveals another strong side of Abram. He was not only a man of faith, he was also a man of courage. Abram won the battle and brought Lot back, along with the possessions and the people who had been taken. But then one of the most mysterious and beautiful moments in this story takes place. On his way back, Abram meets Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High. Melchizedek brings out bread and wine and blesses Abram. He declares, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth." This meeting is brief, but deeply symbolic, because before Abram could celebrate his victory, he was reminded of who had truly given him that victory. It was not his strength, it was not his strategy, it was not his merit. It was God. And Abram acknowledged that by giving him a tenth of everything, that soon after, the king of Sodom tried to make Abram an offer. He wanted Abram to keep the riches of war, but Abram refused. Why? Because he did not want anyone to say, "I made Abram rich." He wanted it to be clear that his provision came from God, not from the wrong alliances. The choice also reveals a lot about him. Abram did not only want blessing, he wanted integrity. And that is rare. In chapter 15, we arrive at one of the deepest moments in this entire story. After all the promises, all the experiences, and all the victories, there was still a pain in Abram's heart. He still had no son. The promise existed, but its fulfillment had not yet come. And maybe this is one of the most human parts of his journey, because it is easy to trust when everything happens quickly. What is hard is continuing to believe when time passes and the promise still feels far away. Then God speaks to Abram once again. "Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward." But Abram opens his heart. He speaks about his pain, his waiting, his silent frustration. He is essentially asking, what good is all of this if I still remain without a son? And that makes this story even more real. True faith is not pretending everything is fine. True faith also knows how to speak honestly with God in the middle of waiting. Then God brings Abram outside and says something unforgettable. "Look up at the sky and count the stars if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be." What a powerful scene. A man with no children, looking up at a sky filled with stars, receiving an impossible promise. And then comes one of the most important lines in all of Scripture. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. That is the center of everything. Abram was not chosen because he was the strongest, not because he was the richest, not because he was perfect. Abram was chosen because he believed. And that remains one of the greatest marks of anyone who truly walks with God. Colon faith, not shallow faith. Not performative faith, but faith that continues even before it sees. After that, God reaffirmed his covenant with Abram, and in a solemn, sacred, and powerful way, the Lord showed that the promise did not depend merely on Abram's human ability, It depended on divine faithfulness. In other words, God was saying, I myself will fulfill what I have promised. And that is one of the most powerful messages of Genesis 12 through 15. God begins his work through unlikely people. God calls those who seem small. God sustains those who stumble. God corrects those who fear. God leads those who obey. And God fulfills what he promises. Abram still did not see everything fulfilled, but he had already learned something essential. When God calls, faith must respond. And maybe this story is speaking to you too. Maybe you are in a season of transition. Maybe God is calling you to trust him more deeply. Maybe you are waiting for something that still has not happened. Maybe you are staring at a promise that feels too far away. If that is you, remember Abram. He did not begin with answers. He began with faith. And it was that faith that placed him inside a story far greater than he could have ever imagined. Because sometimes, all God is looking for is a heart willing to say yes. And that is how the story of Abraham began. The story of a man called by God. The story of a promise. The story of a covenant. And the story of a faith that still echoes today. If this message spoke to your heart, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we are going to continue this journey through the stories of the Bible together. And if you want, write this in the comments. I choose to walk by faith. In the next video, we will continue Abraham's story and see how God's promise begins to unfold even more deeply